Namaste, greetings everyone. This is ManageBetter, your show, episode number 80. We've reached a milestone of a sort, and with your love, affection, patronage, and support, I've taken the show from episode 0, and I thought that 10 will be enough. Like many other podcasts, I thought 10 will be enough, and I will end the series. But what has happened is that there has been so much affection and need also that I've felt, and I've been able to bring more guests and expanded the horizon. Those of you who've been with me from the first show will remember that initially this was only about quality and performance excellence and those kind of series. I even did a 20-part series with Kimpro Foundation, and brick by brick, it is now growing. So thank you very much for your support. Very quickly, those who have joined from LinkedIn or YouTube, if you can let me know if the session is live. Yes, I can see some people are live. So at least the feed is working. So first test as a quality professional is to make sure that the infrastructure is working. So it is working. Uh, Very quickly, moving on to today's show. So today's show is about entrepreneurship, and I always believe that it is a word that anybody can talk about without knowing what it is. Like many other words, we all need to know what it is. We, particularly in the last 3 4 years, and maybe thanks to Shark Tank, it has become a little bit more popular as a word. But we might, like me, at least I can say, we might struggle with spelling the word, but we think we know what it means, right? So if I gave you a spot check, many of us will struggle with the spelling of entrepreneurship, but we will claim that we know about it. What is a startup? How to start up? How to build one? What are the challenges? What can go wrong? What can go right? Who to hire? Who not to hire? How to hire? Funding issues, keeping pace, competition. So many questions. In a way, I also think that large companies today were sometime a small company. So nobody started large, right? So everybody was a small company, and that small company was nothing but maybe a mom and pop show or a garage, setup or somebody's living room or something else. And then it grew, and they could use the word startup, and all of them dreamt and worked hard on their dream. There is no reason that your small dream today cannot become the big basket or the Flipkart or the Zerodha of tomorrow. That's something that we have learned in the last few years. But we will all need guidance, and in a large world where multiple voices exist, I believe my voice is of caution and reason. So my belief is that we need to learn something about what we are trying to do. Of course, you can always take the plunge, and entrepreneurship therefore is an area that I thought many of my audience members wanted to learn, and so I turned to somebody who has done a startup. Then I thought, why one startup? Why not somebody who has done two startups? Then I got greedy. I said, okay, maybe three startups. Then I thought maybe five startups, right? And there are not many people with that kind of background. So I looked around and found a legend in this space who's done five startups and in five different sectors, right? So that's the guest for today, and I will introduce a little bit and then bring him to the show. So Hari sir, TN Hari is a legend in this space. Spent over 20 years, right? So most of us know startups from Shark Tank. That's not the case. This has existed for a long time. 20 years into the startup ecosystem, he's been part of the growth journey of five startups in five different sectors, as I shared. The most popular one being Big Basket. So he was part of the management team of this Big Basket. And four of these startups went on to be acquired by big organizations, and one of them is already listed on NASDAQ. Three went on to be unicorns. So very few people who have delivered three unicorns already. And he knows what it takes to be in a startup. So, of course, he's also been sharing what he knows generously and has written 7 books in the last 7 years. Most of them have been category leaders. He advises VC fund, VC venture capital funds, so one in growth stage and one in early stage. We will talk about all of this, and he's also a mentor to Techstars, which is an accelerator. One of the reasons why I wanted or requested Hari sir to be on the show is that he's now co-founded Artha School of Entrepreneurship. So where he can actually help the next generation of entrepreneurs learn whatever the current generation has learned, and that I feel is a very noble thing. And this is a not-for-profit or a non-profit organization, Section 8 company. So that is even more commendable. With this, let me invite T. N. Hari to the feed. Namaste, sir, and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Anshuman. You've been very, very kind and liberal in the introduction.
No, I wanted to share, but then I thought the whole episode will go in this only. But we wanted to get to you quickly, and thank you very much for your time. Any opening comments on the topic or anything that you wanted to share before we dive into the questions?
No, nothing particular. I'm looking forward to this. I think the topic is wonderful. Everyone has been talking about entrepreneurship. So probably I can share a couple of thoughts. It may or may not add to anyone's knowledge or may not provide any new insights, but let me share whatever I have seen and whatever I know.
Certainly. And we will look forward to that. And of course, the format of the show, sir, is that we will around at 30 minutes or so, we will take audience questions. So that is
Yeah.
also a reminder to the audience that this is not a show about two people talking. Of course, for some time, yes, but we will take your questions. So if you are interested in entrepreneurship or startup life or the issues, challenges, the joys and questions around any of these topics, this is that class where you can ask your questions, and I will curate those questions as we go along. But firstly, I mean, I have some prepared questions, so I will go through them first. I keep saying that I have the mic, so I have the right, and in that sense, I will pose you the first question. So we did speak about, of course, the most popular example we know about your startup life is the big basket life, but there are more. And slowly during the session, we will take stories from the other one. But you did not, of course, start in a startup, right? So no, nobody does. So, or most people are now maybe 20 years old, they have a startup. So they can say that their first job is a startup. But can you share your journey and background in the world of startups and entrepreneurship? How did you land here? And just so that people do realize and take some confidence from your journey.
So I graduated, Anshuman, in 1986. That was way, way, way back before even liberalization. Forget startups, there were not even many MNCs in India. We didn't have multinational banks, we didn't have multinational companies in India. So largely Indian companies. So after my engineering from IIT Madras, mechanical engineering, I did an MBA from IIM Calcutta. And the reason for doing an MBA was not to run away from engineering because I was passionate about engineering, but to get a more holistic understanding of how companies work. And
Hmm.
after the MBA from IIM Calcutta, I joined this company called Tata Steel. For me, it was a very exciting place because it gave me an opportunity to see mega engineering, whatever I had seen on paper and in books in college. Getting to experience that in reality was an awesome experience, and I just didn't know how 11 years in engineering just flew by. So I was in the shop floor building steel melting shops, coke ovens, blast furnaces. So all of this was very, very exciting. It was engineering at work. I was very, very fulfilled. And in large companies, you also move across functions. Once people spot you that you're good enough to play general management roles, you are rotated between functions. And I moved into the area of human capital. I have no idea that I will ever move into human capital. I thought marketing, finance are areas probably I might do something in, but human capital was by accident. At that point of time, Tata Steel was going through a massive crisis, which is post-liberalization. CIS countries were dumping steel at prices that were below our cost. So we had to figure out what we needed to change in a very fundamental way. And we realized that we need to change the culture, bring in a culture of accountability, meritocracy. Earlier, it was seniority drove everything, where else we had to right size the organization. 70,000 people producing 3 million tons of steel. It was just not okay. In the other parts of the world, in Europe, Japan, 3,000 people produce 3 million tons of steel. That's it.
Hmm.
So something was fundamentally wrong at the company. So we had to restructure the company, organize it along business units, hold people accountable, create business unit heads who were accountable. So all of that very, very exciting. But at some point of time, I just felt Tata Steel wasn't the place for me because I was a bit of a rule breaker, wasn't too keen to ask five people, or seek their permission before doing something good. So I just wanted to work in a place where there was far more empowerment, and I had no idea where I would find such a place. And it was just by accident that I discovered this company called Daksh. It was one of India's first startups in the BPO space and went on to become an iconic startup along with Spectramind. Spectramind was acquired by Wipro, and at some point of time, Daksh, which I worked
Yeah,
for, was acquired by IBM.
IBM.
So that began my journey in startups, and I just felt, what, I found the right place. In fact, I was asking myself in the first few months, why didn't I discover a place like this much before? Why didn't I know about the existence of such a place, and why didn't I try and come to such work in such a place? So the last 20 years have just flown by. I've just been doing the fun things, and I'm a very quick learner, very curious. So for me, it was very enjoyable working for five startups in five different domains. Each of them was Big Basket, was an e-commerce company, Taxi for Sure in some ways, a consumer internet company, worked for a BPO company, a IT services company, a knowledge process outsourcing. So very, very exciting. I've seen scale journeys multiple times, seeing the movie play out. And to an extent that many times I can just close my eyes and figure out what's likely to happen. So being able to connect the dots, figure out some patterns, and that's it. Last 20 years I think has been fun, and in the last 20 years, particularly the last 7 years, I have spent a lot of time engaging with the ecosystem, helping young founders avoid mistakes that me and some of my colleagues may have made by doing many things, sharing my learnings in the form of articles, books, being a mentor at multiple platforms, also been helping some venture capital funds, one very closely, which is a fundamental partnership, which is a Nandan Nilekani growth fund. So that's here. That's how I'm here.
It's super exciting and super inspiring because
Mhm.
you know I keep sharing, and this is the little bit mid career coaching that I do. I keep getting this question that I want to do a startup, and people will say that, and I said, okay, go startup then. So
Mhm.
don't keep talking about it. The best way to do
Mhm.
a startup is to do a startup,
Yeah.
or the best way to do anything is to do that thing. So I mean, I've been into amateur running earlier, and that also started like okay, you want to run. You don't
Yeah.
over prepare for 2 months and then do that. And I could get that sense and vibe as you were speaking. Of course, I'm sure your experience at Tata Steel, uh, prepared you for something like this. And I often say that if you have seen scale, you can build scale sometimes easier to relate. May not be always, but today maybe some startups will defy that. But thank you for sharing your journey. You've oversimplified it, but maybe that's how it is. That's how life is. You keep building from one uh, sector to another sector and continue. Fair enough. So moving on quickly, since you've now seen like you said, five startups, and you are helping many other startups or entrepreneurs, and also in a way imparting knowledge or teaching. Uh, Teaching is probably not the best word, but you know what I mean. You would
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
seen many such journeys, right? So, what do you see the most common qualities or characteristics that successful entrepreneurs possess? Something that always, if we did a word cloud of all that you have learned in the last many years, what would be the top few qualities or characteristics that you have seen among successful uh, entrepreneurs? So, success mantra.
Yeah, I don't know if success mantra is possible, but let me just try and identify some traits of successful entrepreneurs that I have seen. The first is,
Mm,
I think, passion for solving a problem, which is the founder would be getting sleepless nights, having sleepless nights, and believing, what, that this is a problem that I definitely must be solving. It's something that appeals to me, and I am best placed for solving this problem. And a deep, deep passion for solving that problem is a prerequisite. Second, I think, is high degree of stamina and resilience, because the founder's journey isn't going to be very easy. There are going to be hundreds of ups and downs, many near death moments, And it's very important to be able to bounce back from those kind of adversities. So stamina and resilience to go the long haul or do the long haul is, I think, a very important trait. Otherwise, people tend to give up. The last, I think, is that the sense of purpose must be much much stronger than the need for material comforts. If that sense of purpose is not much stronger than the need for material comfort, then people are well off working for a large company, getting a good monthly salary, buying a good home, buying a car, and being happy. So I think founders don't really crave for some of these things, and for them a sense of purpose is very important. So I think these three I really found are, essential for being a successful founder. But it's not that if these three are any kind of a magical recipe and if you have them you can be successful, because there are many other factors that determine success. And that's the reason why I say, there's no one, recipe for success, although you can provide some standard recipes for failure, but there is no recipe for success. For example, luck plays a very important role. Being at the right time, right place, finding the right backers is such an important element of success. So I'm just identifying three traits which I think are prerequisites for success, but no guarantee for success.
So you spoke about something that, of course, thank you for these three, and obviously they make a lot of sense. Particularly the last one I thought was extremely enlightening, that sense of purpose should be far bigger than need for material comforts. And that is where all this issue about funding versus, how much funding you take and what is good and what is not good, and all that probably roots there. But we'll come to
Yeah.
that question later. But you used a word recipe for failure, so I want you to tackle that a little bit. That what did you mean by recipe for failure?
Oh,
Any common
yeah, there are
common
yeah, there are
stuff?
many clear. In fact, if you ask me, it'll be very difficult in terms of teaching someone how to be successful, but it's relatively easy to teach people how not to fail. So, for instance, execution is a very important element, of doing things well in a startup. So, if you can't
Mhm.
execute well, I think you're bound to fail. So, executing well doesn't guarantee you success, but not executing well is a sure recipe for failure. Uncluttered thinking is a very important element, because from time to time you're going to get a lot of advice, from a variety of people, from your investors, from your stakeholders, your customers, your families, from other founders. But it's very important for you to figure out how much of that to take and how much of that not to take, how much of that is noise and how much of that is real good advice. So I think being able to see through the smoke and noise is also very important, and get to the root cause of something, cutting through the clutter. But cutting through the clutter doesn't guarantee you success. But not cutting through the clutter, for instance, behaving in a very confused way, taking decisions
Mhm.
which are not right, moving from one idea to another idea prematurely. So they are all recipes for failure, is what I would say.
Yeah, that, I mean, the uncluttered thinking, of course, is a recipe for failure in anything, but more so in entrepreneurship, because with the advent of our life being captured by social media, we have 20 ways or 5 ways or three short ways or 7 tips to do anything and everything. So you can
Yes.
make $1 million
Five steps to
tomorrow.
becoming a millionaire. Mhm.
I keep getting that question. Now you have a YouTube channel. You must be, hiring people to count your money. And that if it was that easy, so
Yeah.
but I get you there. And when we come to the Artha School thing, we will probably talk about this teaching bit a little bit more. Uh, we have a couple of questions, but I normally take questions toward the end, but I think this is a slightly related one. So let's take one right now. Rajan is asking, can entrepreneurship be actually taught? And he's given an example of his wife who has no fancy degree, but and no corporate connection, except maybe Rajan himself being the corporate connection. But she ran her design business for 22 years, and last 3 years started a cloud kitchen. I think so. Therefore, the question is that, can it be taught, or it has to be always learned the hard way?
So I think this is a very interesting and nuanced questions, and there are multiple points of view. There is a school of thought, for instance, that entrepreneurship can be taught. Very strong school of thought that entrepreneurship itself can be systematically taught. My view is that it's not very easy to teach a person to become an entrepreneur. But once somebody is already an entrepreneur, it is possible to teach how to scale, for example, seamlessly, how to grow without making some mistakes. So I think scaling your journey can be taught more easily than how you can become an entrepreneur. So I think becoming an entrepreneur is a difficult call that an individual necessarily has to take by herself. I don't know how much of that you can teach. I think there has to be an inner inspiration for solving a particular problem and a deep belief that you are the right person for solving this problem. That passion, that energy, that need to hustle, that not wanting to be working in a safe space but trying out something new is not something I believe can be easily taught. You can't teach someone like a Columbus or a Vasco da Gama or Magellan, to develop the courage to go out into the high seas. So that's something that they have to do on their own. But once they're on their high seas, you can help them build the right kind of boats with the right kind of sails that can help them navigate, storms, navigate long distances. That's something you can help them with. And that's true with entrepreneurs as well, which is I believe that it can't be easily taught becoming an entrepreneur. But once you become an entrepreneur, I think you can teach them not to trip up during that journey, teach them many things which can help them build a company, build a product, help them understand when they should pivot, help them understand when they should persevere against all odds, help them even develop character. It's also something that can be taught through frameworks. That's the way I think. But there is a school of thought, I can tell you, very strong school of thought, especially in some universities where entrepreneurship is taught, that you can even help people become entrepreneurs by giving them the right kind of inputs. It can be taught. So, but that's my view is most likely different.
Sure. Thanks, Hari. Rajan, I hope you had your response. So moving on with the other list of questions that I had, I did speak to some people who are trying to start up. Right? So, and startup is the easier word for entrepreneurship today. It's easy to spell also. So I'll use that word. But you've seen so many, your own, where you were involved and where you were an advisor or a mentor or, have helped in other capacities. What are some of the common challenges and obstacles people face? So some you mentioned during the, success mantra response, but I just want to deep dive a little bit, and if you can share some examples, those which can be shared. Of course, some might be
Yeah, of course, of course.
confidential. Yeah. So, where what are those common challenges, obstacles that anybody today starting up should be careful about, and how do you suggest they overcome it?
Yeah. See, I think the biggest problem that entrepreneurs will grapple with is to get the product market fit right. The product market fit is a phrase. Let's just de-jargonize it and
Mhm.
explain it in a very simple way. What does it really mean? It really means that you are solving a real problem, and customers who are feeling the pain are willing to pay you enough money to make your business profitable. So I think that's simply product market fit, which is that people are paying you sufficient money for solving a problem of theirs, which makes you profitable. Now just look at a company like let's say a roadside kirana store, right, which is at the right location in the neighborhood. Does that kirana store ever have to go and spend money on acquiring customers? They don't have to. Customers just walk in. So there's no customer acquisition cost. They just go by neighborhood, people just go out to that kirana store, pick up what they want, and that kirana store runs on its own steam. So it's a very good product market fit just by getting that location right and getting the product assortment and being at the right place. They have got a product market fit right. Just look at a product like a 2-minute Maggie noodles. I don't think they really have to advertise for that, or a product like Surf has to be advertised. They've got a great product market fit, both of them. Customers just walk into stores and ask for these products. You don't have to tell them, you don't have to advertise. Although these are advertised, but this is mostly to remind them rather than, to get that product market fit right. So I think getting that product market fit is extremely difficult. You can see that, in this funding winter, what's happening is that you are seeing that several large startups, which all of us thought were amazing, valued at multi-billion dollars, suddenly are just coming off because they don't have a product market fit. So they were just simply, through capital, an artificial product market fit was created, and people thought this company is an amazing company. But once capital disappeared, customers are no longer willing to pay for that product. As a result of which, that company in fact is wondering, what is my product market fit. So I think it's very important to get a product market fit, which is that you have to be solving a real problem, solving it in a manner for those who are feeling the pain, that they will pay you enough money to make your business profitable. I think that's the biggest challenge. Second challenge is something like this, which is that you as a founder just begun a business, and you have to attract and inspire good people to quit some decent jobs and come and walk into uncertainty, walk into an uncertain future, and put their careers in your hands. Why would they do that? So attracting and inspiring good people when you have limited amount of money, I think, is a challenge. Some founders do it really well. They're able to evangelize, they're able to paint a picture of a different world very effectively, they're able to inspire, they're able to provide a vision. But some founders will struggle to do that. So I think, to me, that's the next biggest challenge. And there are many other challenges. I might list out one or two others. For example, sometimes your idea that does not work, and you realize once you go in with a prototype or a product that that's not what the customers are looking for. So then you might have to make a pivot. But then if you make a hasty pivot before trying what you already have properly, then that would be a hasty pivot which would kill your startup. So it's about balancing, the in the right way, which is giving it enough time, fighting against all odds to make your product successful, and also being able to back off at the right time when you figure out that something is not working, and making tweaks to your products or features, or even making a pivot. Then I think founders will also struggle with another challenge, which is how do you do the trade-off between being grounded and dreaming. And that difference is very important. Being grounded means you care a lot for the lessons that you've learned. You are cautious in the way you do things. You care for not taking unnecessary risk. So that's about being grounded. So you have learned your lesson. The Pope and the church come and tell you something very different, but you're not going to change your opinion easily. It's like Galileo sticking to his viewpoint and saying, you know what, you can tell me that the sun goes around the earth, but I know for a fact that the earth goes around the sun. It's in being able to stick to your position because you're confident about it. But it also has to be balanced by being flexible about changing your opinion in the face of a superior idea. So that's not an easy trade-off to do. You might hang on to your idea for too long, or you might make a switch too early. I think that's another challenge. I just listed three or four, but there are many myriad, hundreds of challenges, smaller ones.
Yeah, and I'm sure there are many, but from how you present it, they appear to be the primary ones. And like when you were talking about the product market fit, I can't help but think of an organization or a company that started some years ago. I don't want to name because obviously, out of respect for the founders, they tried their best. But this was in the laundry thing, and I remember having a conversation with another person who was starting up, and I said, "Look, this is just not the fit. How many people will actually go and avail a service which they know is charging a multiple times premium for just washing their clothes and ironing them? And can this be scaled up?" Of course, it was a debate, and maybe in some countries it can be scaled up if there is a dense population in a in a area where housing is very small and you don't have domestic help and other things. So those examples were cited, particularly of countries where large population will stay in a very urban location and they don't have big houses and any help. But that can't be juxtaposed to India as a demographic. So, and sadly, that company folded up. And not to say that I was right, but I hated to be right in that sense because everybody wants people to succeed. But that's an example, I think, of product market fit. It was probably a good idea, but just in the market, it won't click. People won't pay. Maybe people in Bangalore, Mumbai, Delhi might pay, but the more deeper you go, which is the scale up issue, people will struggle. Would that be a good example of a product market fit, just to understand
I don't want to
probably?
comment on anything specific, Anshuman. The reason is because a startup can fail for a set of reasons. It may not be just about the product market fit, it could be about many other things. For
Many.
example, there is another company which has started now, which is called Laundromat.
Hmm.
Laundry Mate, run by
Hmm.
Abhinay. Abhinay was an ex co-founder at Big Basket, and I know he's building it the right way. And my own sense is that his laundry company is likely to succeed, and succeed in a very big way. So I think it depends on your, not just the problem you're solving, but also your business model, how you define the problem, what kind of a solution, what kind of a business model. So, for example, the same problem can be solved by a marketplace of smaller laundries, where
Hmm.
you pick the laundry which is closest to the customer and send the products, send the clothes there. But you could have a model which Abhinay has, which is that for entire Bangalore, there's a big, laundry center which is set up in a place called Dodballapur, which is about 50 kilometers away from Bangalore. It's a state of the art facilities. So all clothes are collected, sent there, and sent back to the next day itself. So it depends on the business model also. For example, even in grocery, several companies died. It's not that they didn't have the
Hmm.
product market fit. Their business model was terrible. For example, Zop now died, Local Banya died, Pepper Tap is struggling. I think
Hmm.
Pepper Tap is dead too. And
Yeah.
Grofers is struggling even after making a pivot, but Big Basket is succeeding. So I think it's about the business model as well. Many things go to make a company successful. Product market fit is just one of them.
Yeah, I'm sure you have more experience than, and since you shared Big Basket, I'm a user and a happy user. So I can
Mhm.
say that they got several things right, including the small thing of, if they send you, and I'm saying using they because you don't actively work with them now,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
the loose change, in this, and that problem is a big problem. So if you booked
yeah.
250 grams or something, but the actual weight is 200, how do you settle the remaining thing? And I think that they got right very early in the game because that's a big problem. Uh, in so that's one of the reasons most of the grocers send pre-packaged, weighed items, but the households don't want that. They want 100 grams of this and 250 grams of this, and how do you solve that? Cool. We'll take one more question from the audience, and I'm just selecting one that pops up and looks the best. Vikas Dhal, can't somebody be an entrepreneur in a job itself, demonstrating sense of purpose, taking risk, leading teams? So this is more a
Yeah.
mid-career question.
Yes,
Yeah.
very much. Absolutely. So, in fact, there's a term for this, and that term is called intrapreneur, which is that my own belief is that even large companies need employees who are entrepreneurs. Because to compete in today's world, you cannot just work the way you used to work. There needs to be some kind of an entrepreneurial skill set that employees demonstrate. So, I think the point is very right, which is those who are entrepreneurial, we'll call them intrapreneurs, are very critical even in larger mature companies.
Sure. Thanks, Hari. Because I hope you have your answer. Thank you very much. So one more question that appeared when I was speaking to people to prepare for the show was the I think the word is over dependence, but let's say dominant dependence on technology. Right? So because technology by nature will keep changing, maybe 5 years ago having an app was enough. Now, a simple app may not be enough. There should be some level of AI built into it. There should be some level of analytics built into it, and so on. So what trends and emerging technologies are currently shaping the startup landscape, and how can entrepreneurs actually stay ahead of the curve, because this is changing just too fast sometimes.
See, my own belief, Anshuman, on this is that entrepreneurs need to be passionate about solving a problem, and they
Hmm.
need to have it's very good appreciation of the strategic power of technology in driving a business. So you need to
Hmm.
have a deep appreciation of the strategic power of technology. You don't need to know the nitty-gritties of technology. And what is happening is that as technology becomes complex, there are entrepreneurs who are dumbing down technology and creating tools out of them. So, for
Hmm.
example, all of us today use a tool called Excel, right? We're very
Hmm.
happily using it. Do we know what is inside Excel, or how does it operate? How does the complex algorithm operate? No, because somebody who has worked on the technology has dumbed it down so much that it's easy for us to use. Think of an internal combustion engine, right? Car designs. Do any of us need to know how the car engine works? We just need to know how to drive the car. We just need to know how to operate the brake, the clutch, the accelerator, and the steering wheel. Today, you don't even need, for example, the clutch because it's an automatic. You don't even need to have a shift gears. And it's happening in every area. So I think technology is getting dumbed down, made idiot proof, and getting converted into tools that people can use. So I think all you need is there are two types of individuals: those who are digitally savvy and are early adopters, and those who are digitally not savvy. So I think that's the only difference. You don't need to have deep understanding of any technology. Technology will keep changing, but you just need to be digitally savvy enough to figure out what are those new technologies, how can I put them to use, and who are the people who can help me with this. And don't worry about it at all, because very soon there will be tools in place, even for AI, even for chat. You have chat GPT, for example, right? A
Yeah.
beautiful tool that, even content creators, very ordinary people who have zero appreciation of technology, are beginning to use and improving their day-to-day life efficiency, productivity, everything. So I really think that you don't have to be on top of technology in a very fundamental way. You just need to have appreciation of the strategic power of technology, a strategic understanding of technology. That's all that's needed. I think founders just need to be much, much more passionate about solving a problem and doing other things that are relevant to building a company. For example, you had Lou Gerstner. One example: Lou Gerstner was the CEO at IBM. IBM was going through some pretty bad. They were going through bad times, and they had become a company that had you know had had was not able to reinvent itself. Forget reinvent itself, wasn't even able to compete. So the IBM board figured out that the problem is at the top. So let's get somebody who can rejuvenate this company, and they got in somebody who was the CEO at Amex, and his name was
Hmm.
Lou Gerstner. And Amex is a financial services company, whereas IBM was a technology company. So Lou Gerstner understood how the power of technology. He didn't understand the nitty-gritty of technology, so he never knew exactly what IBM did, the products it produced. But he knew sales. He knew, how to build a company, how to rejuvenate a company, how to create that energy within this company, how to support new product development. What was missing? So I think founders need to know that much more than being on top of every new technology that is coming our way.
Really well said. And on Lou Gerstner, I think the fantastic book Elephants Can Dance explains this whole episode, how Lou was hired, and then he got locked
Yes.
out, even wasn't allowed to enter because he was not wearing a suit, because
Yes.
he was the first CEO to just arrive in a shirt, and normal, very normal business attire. But yeah, so and while you were talking, I also recall these few founders I know and people who are in that space. They do solve this issue of technology by knowing somebody who knows much more than them. I think
Yeah.
you hinted at that always know some people whom you can ask and learn from, and you don't have to then uh, be always ahead of the time, because you can't be
Yeah.
always ahead of the thing. And many SaaS tools will anyway come up, which will solve the problem for
Yes.
you. Okay, with that, we are almost 40 minutes into the show and two-thirds. So, quick reminder, yeah, of course, quite a few have shared the questions that you have, but anyone who has questions and is still waiting, maybe your question will be the smart one that will get picked. So, do ask your question. Uh, don't wait for tomorrow. So, the a little deeper into this. So, many people I spoke to, of course, wanted to know that how does one approach the funding topic, for example, like, assuming that they have started something and it is now a little bootstrapped and it's doing, let's say, first 100, first 1,000 customers, depending on the market. How does this funding whole thing work? Who do they approach and how do they go for that? In brief, I know it is far more detailed and complicated, but in brief, just to give some idea to people to follow up on that.
See, I have a very unconventional view on this, Anshuman, which is that funding is the last thing that founders should be thinking about. See, I think this entire thing of funding, the fact that you can't build a business without funding, has been a myth that the venture capitalists have created. So, if you look at several of the companies, good company, India has 6+ crore, micro, small, medium enterprises. None of them are VC funded. Many of them are profitable. Many of them are run well. So, to build a business, you need funding is a myth. Only some types of business models need venture capital type of
Mhm.
funding, because sometimes in the beginning, when you have to solve a problem, you have to nudge customers to try it out, in which case you have to burn a lot of cash or reasonably large amount of money before you get customers to start using and paying. In those situations, you certainly need funding. You also need funding for building prototypes, expanding to new cities. But the fact that funding is the primary aspect element of building a business is a myth. I think a founder should focus on solving a right problem. They should not care about whether this problem can become a $1 billion opportunity or not. They should solve problems that they're passionate about. I'm not a believer that you have to solve a problem with a large addressable market and go on to hyperscale and become a unicorn. That's a VC funded model. The moment the VC gives you money, they will expect you to scale in this particular way. And not all businesses are amenable to scaling in this way. So I think you should just build the business the right way, solve the problem that you're passionate about, and not all businesses or problems are amenable to VC funding or hyperscaling. So you figure out what's your journey, and once you realize that yes, I genuinely need venture capital, that's the point at which you should begin to think of raising money. And raising money isn't rocket science. If you have a great idea, VCs will line up outside your door. You should be solving a real problem. You should have happy customers. Experience should be awesome. Your customer base should be growing. They should be happily paying you money for your products or services. Do that, and VCs will line up outside your door. So spend time on building your business and very less time on how to fund it.
Really well said. And while it sounds contrary, but I think this is conventional wisdom in any case. Uh, and you will be surprised a little bit that I was speaking a couple of weeks ago on the same show with Kushal Lodha and Ishan Sharma, two very young entrepreneurs. Their combined age is lesser than mine, but they actually wrote a book speaking to 20 unicorns of India, and this was the exact summary also that they shared, that one of the lessons they learned is that if you want advice, ask for money. If you want money, you will get advice. So the summary, of course, is that, like you said, if your model is working, if you have shown that it can work, money will find a way to you, and you may not have to go looking for it. Time for another audience question. I will bring in a question from Vinod Bhatt, a good friend of mine, a fellow LinkedIn, creator, accelerator program member as well. And he's recently written a book, very popular book now, on financial independence. But his question is around, what are some hard decisions you have had to take in the 5 startups you have been up? Doesn't mean that you have 5 hard decisions, but anything
Yeah,
that
yeah.
pops in your memory.
So I have been a little fortunate, I must say, Vinod, in the sense that all the startups that I've worked for had reasonably good product market fit. We were growing, and there were a few phases when we faced some difficulties, but it were never life and death situations. So I cannot artificially create stories to say that I took these hard decisions. One or two places there were hard decisions to be taken, and all of them had to be about laying off people. So at Virtusa, for example, this company we had listed on Nasdaq. It was a public company. In a public company, you need to produce results in a predictive manner, quarter on quarter. And at some point of time, our growth wasn't as expected, and we had to lay off a good number of people, both in our sales organizations in the US and UK, as well as the delivery organizations in Asia. And we took that call to lay off people, communicate to them the difficult decision to lay off those people. And we had to lay off some very good people. In fact, the North America head of HR was a very, very seasoned individual. The chief marketing officer, who was based out of Boston, was also a very, very seasoned executive, very high quality executives, very committed people. And letting go of them, communicating to them was difficult. And there were many other good people who were not as senior, who were competent, good natured, honest, loyal. They had worked for us, very, very sincere kind of individuals with families. So yes, sending them off wasn't easy. So I think overall, everywhere, wherever, a couple of places wherever we had to take these tough calls, it was all about downsizing and laying off and having to send off people who are otherwise very, very good.
Hmm. So, Vinod, I hope you had your answer. I think the common hard decision, of course, is to lay off people, but that's the hardest in any case. Even in corporate life, I sometimes jokingly say, and of course, it's not so much a joke, that in the last 5 years, I fired more people than hired. But but that's the bitter reality of sometimes corporate uh, life. As you get senior, you will have to do that. Okay, getting a little deeper. So, you know, you are quite active with the Artha School. So maybe we can get a little deeper into what does this Artha School for Entrepreneurship do? Why is it required, and how can it help anybody who wants to take any help from them?
So we are also discovering our journey, but one thing is very clear, Anshuman, we have carefully set this up as a Section 8 company, which is that we will depend upon philanthropy money to keep this
Hmm.
going. And as a result of which, our expenses are not going to be too high, and we don't charge participants also a lot of money. In fact, we going forward, we want to do a lot of things free of charges. So it depends upon the target customers, target segment. So for underprivileged entrepreneurs, for college students, underprivileged entrepreneurs in tier 3, tier 4 towns of India, we conduct programs, and we don't want to charge anything from them. We also work with the governments, government of Maharashtra, government of Kerala, other governments, where they send the participants that they have provided grants to our scale workshop, and we charge them a nominal amount, and the government pretty much subsidizes the entire thing for the participants. So we do that as well. We conduct workshops on topics which are sector agnostic. So you can have an AI founder who's doing an AI startup sit in the same room as founder who's doing a e-commerce startup, to someone who's doing a platform for booking resorts for Ayurveda experiences in Kerala, for example. We can do that in a way because we touch upon aspects of scaling which are sector agnostic. We do that. And yeah, we also going forward, we also plan to go to colleges and talk to them about entrepreneurship, help them understand what it means to take up entrepreneurship, and the fact that don't jump into entrepreneurship just because it's a cool thing to do. These are all the things that you'll have to go through. And we will also want to pick a few of them to, for example, shadow some of the founders and see how entrepreneurship is all about. So multiple things. We've also helped larger companies, larger startups, where we do specific customized workshops for them. And in those cases, the startups should be very clear that they have some things to learn. Sometimes, if you raise a lot of money, you don't really believe that you have anything to learn. And learning is never such a very important element for any set individual or a company. It's something that is not a must have. We understand that. So, therefore, we only serve people who deeply believe that there are things to be learned from people who've seen this journey before. And those larger companies also, we have, for example, done workshops for companies like Incref, for a company like Dehat. So larger, they are all larger. Dehat, for example, is a unicorn. That's what we do at Artha.
Really commendable. So, to the audience who are live today and anybody who watches this show later, if you need this kind of help and want to learn from people who've actually done this and have that hands-on experience, and you can check out. I will flash the name of the or website so that anybody who wants to. So, artha.org.in is the address. Please do check out if you need this kind of input. But moving back to questions, and since we are coming to the close, I'm mindful that I should, respect your time. But one question that I've always asked most guests who've reached a stage in their career is that if you had to give advice to your younger self, much younger self, or anybody young walks up and says that, Hari, I want to start up and I have this idea, and sometimes the idea is not important, the approach and attitude and temperament is more important. What would you give? What advice would you give them? So,
Probably the only advice I'd give them is start up only if you really, really want to. If you're having week after week of sleepless nights about solving a problem, then think of starting up. Otherwise, stick to a good job, well paid job, larger company. Stick to that. You're well off by doing that. Entrepreneurship is an extremely difficult journey, and do it only for the right reasons. Don't do it for the wrong reasons. And I talked to you about some of the right reasons, and do
yeah,
it only because you have the right kind of mindset and capabilities. Sometimes, or not all of us are built to be entrepreneurs, and it's perfectly all right. It's perfectly be all right to be a painter and not an entrepreneur. Perfectly all right to be working for an IBM and not starting up. So I think we should just recognize what our passions are, what our strengths are, and do entrepreneurship for the right reasons, not for the wrong reasons.
And money is certainly not the
Not
right
at
thing.
all. Money is not. In fact, I told you right at the beginning that sense of purpose must be far greater than the need for material comforts for entrepreneurs. If that is not true, then I think don't get into entrepreneurship. For example, you must be able to control the operating costs of your life. Operating costs of your life means must be able to quickly say, I'm not going to stay in a three-bedroom apartment. Why do I need? Two rooms are anyway empty. I'll better stay in a one-room apartment. And why do I need a big car? I'll drive around in a small car. My friend is driving a big car, but I'm perfectly all right. I won't get affected. And my family might ask me, my relatives might ask me, and I'm very happy telling them that this is who I am. But if you have problems telling that, and if you have to keep up with the Joneses, then entrepreneurship is not for you.
That last one hit me a little bit, but I get your point. I think if like if you're not frugal in your non-entrepreneur life, you will never be frugal in your entrepreneur life. So that comes with a mindset and an approach. And many startups today are probably facing this because of excess spending in areas they need not have spent, and then are short on capital. And then the complaint is that there is a funding winter. Yes, there will be some funding winter, but for the right people, for the right businesses, business models, right team, there probably isn't any winter. So we'll take one more, I think, question. And there are quite a few, but I will take one representative question. There are three, four questions which seem similar to this. So Venkata Krishna is asking, as an entrepreneur, sometimes you need to manage different areas of sales, tech, marketing, etc. How do you balance this if you have to? And I know that you earlier said that you don't have to be a master in everything, particularly technology, but how would you
Yeah.
respond to
So I
Venkat's
think
question?
at an early stage, it's very important for a founder to get a hands-on understanding of different aspects of that business. You might never be an expert in all these areas, but what will help you is an ability to apply first principles thinking. So, for example, a first principle thinker is someone who could get into a room where the discussion is on a domain that this person does not understand, but can listen for a few minutes, ask intelligent questions, and can help the group crystallize on a solution. So, I think if you apply first principles thinking, you will be able to understand sales, tech, marketing, and all of these areas. You will never probably be the best at any of these. But in the early stages, it's important to have a good hands on understanding of all elements of your business. But as you scale and grow, as you get your product market fit, that's when I think you should just move away and focus on things that you do best, whatever is your sweet spot, whatever you are amazing at, whatever you are unique at, and get people who understand these domains better than you to help you manage the company.
So I hope, Venkat, you had your response. Uh, Towards the end of the show, what are you reading these days? I know you are more writing books, but certainly there must be something that you are reading. And or what would you advise young entrepreneurs, slightly older ones as
I
well?
don't read the conventional stuff at all,
Hmm.
Anshuman. So I'm not one who will tell you any management book. I don't read management books. I think I read books from other areas. For example, I just recently read a book called Lady Doctors by
Hmm.
Kavita Rao. It's the untold stories of women in medicine in India. Some of the stories of the best doctors, of in pre-independence, starting from pre-independence days. Very, very inspiring book. Then, for example, I was reading a book about Dick Fosbury, the person who perfected the high jump style
Fosbury
today called the Fosbury flop. His story
flop.
and life and times of Fosbury are very interesting. So those are the kind of books I read. I read books like A Selfish Gene by Richard Dawkins. Then those are the kind. I was reading a book on ISRO, for example. This is on my table right away. This
Hmm.
is a personal story by Rav Mood. And in fact, today me and the author are going to be in conversation. Dr. Somnath also is going to be participating in this. So I read that book multiple times, and I just simply loved the story of ISRO. I'm just reading this book, which is about animal senses, an immense world. So I read pretty much books on history, nature, stories of interesting people, No, I never read a book on Steve Jobs or Jeff Bezos. No, those stories don't interest me at all for some reason. They're great people. I have no doubt about them. But corporate heroes are not my heroes at all. Even though I have been working for corporates and in companies, and that's probably the reason why they, more than them, there were many others who are my heroes.
Really insightful. And I've had this kind of response from other people as well earlier that this is also building a worldview, right? So you don't build a worldview if you read only in one area, right? And secondly, sometimes the corporate heroes, their story has already been told, it has already been done, it's unlikely to repeat. By reading it, we feel that we have taken a slice of their life, but actually we haven't, because their story was their story. We have our own story. So, really well said. I think we have one more question quickly. I will try and squeeze it in.
No problem. Don't worry. No problem.
Are entrepreneurs working to solve problems, or are they just pursuing their passion and problems get resolved for users? So, tricky one, but
Yeah, it can be seen both ways. I think it's a very interesting way of seeing it. One is you follow your passion and some problems automatically get solved. That's a way as well. So, in fact, if you see, I think one complete set of innovations have happened because people just followed their passions and automatically good products got created. So, people who are following the passion about, you know, digital imaging, I don't think they wanted to create digital cameras. They wanted to
hmm.
pursue some science, and that science resulted in a beautiful product. So I think pursuit of fundamental ideas, pursuit of some passions, can often result in solving some real problems. But I think that's one way, one path. But and the other path is you figure out this is a problem. I've experienced this. I travel between Bangalore and Hyderabad every week, and I am unable to get tickets on buses, even though buses have empty seats. So there's a problem here. Let me solve this, and that's how Red Bus was formed. So I think both the approaches work. You should just do what you want. Don't need to copy anybody.
And Redbus is, funny. I remember Funny telling me this story himself that that's how he actually thought of Redbus, and so glad heard of that after a long time. Okay, time to end the show. And very quickly, firstly, thank you, Hari sir, for this you know
Not at all.
complete masterclass, because this is a range, and I wanted to speak to somebody who has a a range of experience, right? So because I can always find somebody who has one uh, good strike as a startup, but you can argue that there is probably no process or system because it is one. But somebody who has done it over the years and also seen many, and that's the reason why I have been chasing you for some time, and glad that we could do this today. Thank you to my audience. Do take some time to follow Hari sir's LinkedIn profile. He does from time to time share, and you will get updates on his new book whenever it comes out, and also, of course, about the Artha School that we spoke about. And quick reminder that Artha School is completely non-profit and is trying to work something or do something as a movement, and is a Section 8 organization anyway. So thanks a lot. Quick reminder, I'll take 1 minute, Rishabh, about the next week's show. So next week, there is on popular demand, I am doing a masterclass on growth mindset with Shubhro Mitra, a leadership coach based out of Gurgaon. He's been my coach as well. So there is a little Dronacharya lesson going on there. But and there will be one for everyone. I keep getting requests on how to stay fit during mid-careers. So that will be on the next Saturday, which is 7th of October, with Diksha Chapra, who's a fitness influencer of for the modern generation. So trying to bring multiple people and seeing how we can help each other. So with that, I'll close the show bang on time, and we have one. So whoever said this, man child, thank you very much. One of the best. MB is Manage Better, which is my show name. So thanks a lot,
Thank you. And
and
I'd really like to also thank all your audience for being very patient listeners, Anshuman. Thank you.
our pleasure. And this show, of course, remains live on the same link, so people can watch it later as well. I keep reminding people that one of the advantages of watching it later is that you can watch at higher speed. uh, if you so want to. Okay. With that, I'll let everybody go and I'll end the stream. Thank you very much. Bye bye.
Thank you.